We're going to start with our second keynote presentation. This is from Richard Brooks, who's a consultant who frequently gives keynote presentations at conferences like this. However, it started with us. We were the first, memoQfest was the first time somebody suggested him to do a keynote presentation. And he was awful, so we sent him off for 10 years to learn how to do this. We sent him for 10 years to learn how to do this, and we hope today he'll get it right. He's going to talk to us about managing customers. Richard.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you, everybody. Hello, Budapest. So, 2013, let me get you jumping my time machine with me. We'll take you back to 2013. In 2013, I had a telephone call from Peter, which said he'd tried everybody he could think of. Do I know anybody who could be keynote for memoQfest that year? And I said, yes, me. So I was keynote for memoQfest in 2013, which was and remains the highlight of my career. It's absolutely fantastic, so thank you very much for that. We had an issue around what to call the presentation. We didn't know. We were trying to think of something engaging with a sexy title, etc., etc. Peter said, well, you've just overpaid for your dad's company. Why don't you call it 100 days, true story, 100 days as a CEO, because you've been a CEO about 100 days, even though you had to buy a company and then promote yourself into the position. So we called it 100 days as a CEO. We presented about management, we presented about money, we presented about motivation, and we presented about the entrepreneur. It was wonderful, it was brilliant, we had a good time and a good drink after. Had some feedback after the presentation, and the feedback was, what are you going to do in 10 years? You're going to come back and present 3,650 days as a CEO, because that was a bit stupid. So I said, thanks, Pete. So I was going to call it 3,600 days as a CEO, but two problems. One, it's that joke's not funny, and two, I'm no longer a CEO, I'm now a consultant, consulting my way through the localization and other industries. I've called it Managing Customers. I apologise, it's not a sexy title. I know it's the keynote and it should have AI in there. I thought AI, Managing Customers with AI, or so, I don't know. But GPT customer, I don't know, so it's something like that. But it's essentially managing customers. The reason I want to talk about that is because without the customer, there's nothing. The customer's the most important thing in your organisation. So we'll take the next 41 minutes. We'll take you through some models and frameworks for that. So, first of all, I've enjoyed the pandemic immensely. I've enjoyed being stuck in my garage on my screens. Always do this every time. Let me share my screen. Can everyone see my screen? So it's nice not to do that anymore. This is me at the Finnish Translation Association in 2021. They asked me to talk to those guys. It's their culture to switch the screens off. So it was me in my garage with two screens, not showing off. I've got two screens, 70 people or 70 black screens, and it's just me and the voices in my head telling me that no one's listening, and it's a total waste of time for an hour. So it's lovely to be able to see you. Now, I know it's day 3 of a conference, and I know memoQfest has got a bit of a reputation for this. This is me at a conference in Las Vegas, and I'm doing the old shoulder on the desk. You know that feeling where you think, if I just close my eyes for 10 seconds, things will be better, and Bob Donaldson won't notice because he's presenting, and I'm pretending to write something. This is my friend Francesco, God bless him. He took it to another level. He went to the Plunet stand, and Sophie was giving away sunglasses with Plunet written on it, so he took a pair of Plunet spectacles, and he sat next to me, put them on, and just fell asleep. I think it's funny because who wears sunglasses at a presentation? Make sure no one's got them on. And then, obviously, secondly, he was asleep. It was amazing. It was incredible. What a man. We'd been out drinking till 4 o'clock anyway, but that was the old days. So I will notice if you fall asleep, there will be a forfeit. I guess you'll buy everyone a shot of Palinka or something like that, but there will be a forfeit if you fall asleep in one of my lectures. And as somebody once said, it's good to be back. It's great to be back in Budapest. Lovely to be in Kilgray's company as well. So, who am I? Let's do this while I get used to my silly accent. I've been in the localization world accidentally for the best part of 30 years. I had an LSP. It was run by my parents. I bought it off my parents. I ran it with my brothers. I then exited. I've done almost every job, apart from the clever stuff of translation, within an LSP. If you're stuck in your career, tell me you met me here, and I'll at least give you some advice, or we'll coach you through maybe the next steps of that. It is an amazing industry to be in. It's full of opportunity, full of great people. If you do get stuck, please talk to me, and we can help you move through that. I've sat on the board of the Association of Language Companies in the States and sat on the board of the European Language Industry Association as well in Europe. I encourage you all to do the same. These associations are fantastic. They improve the industry around us, and they're crying out for talent. It's a great thing for you to do to your career. It's a great thing for them to do to get your talent involved. Some of the other stuff I'm doing now, I'm founding fellow of the Institute of Sales Professionals in the UK. The ISP, the Institute of Sales Professionals, is trying to get sales taken seriously as a profession. Sales is incredibly important, and yet you can't be a chartered sales professional. You can be a chartered engineer or a chartered accountant or etc., etc. So what we're trying to do is to develop a level 7 qualification, similar to an MBA type thing, so we can take that and then you'll be chartered in the world of sales. Sales is incredibly important. I invest in a few companies. I'm lecturing at Cranfield University on sales and marketing, which is great. So I've got one foot in academia, which is a whole different minefield to navigate, but it's great because we can take some of those models and bring that back to the real world, okay? Freelance consultant, coaching sales teams and entrepreneurs and all sorts of things. And then the Slater thing. So I'm doing some training for Slater. I twisted their arm. They've given me $200 off the next training, which is me teaching about sales and marketing. Short notice, starts on Wednesday. If you want to come, there's the sign up, and you get $200 off the ticket. It's an absolute bargain. Right. Please share as much as you can of this on social media. It helps all the people who couldn't be bothered to come to follow along at home. If you're like me and get a little bit stuck, not sure what to put, here's some examples. So maybe you could put on Twitter, this is the best presentation I've ever seen in 10 years. Hashtag good to be back. Or you could put something like, oh my God, 10 years and he's still ponying the old jokes. Hashtag recycling. Recycling's very important, ladies and gents. Or not as much fun as the gala dinner, but I came anyway. Hashtag I need some coffee. Hashtag can I have some Plunet spectacles? Or just get ChatGPT to do it, but we'll know who you are. Use ChatGPT on your social media. People can tell. Social media is about authenticity. It needs to be you, not the bloody robot that's doing it. So we can tell that you're doing it. Stop doing it. Everybody can tell. So the too long didn't read of this presentation. I'm going to suggest that the customer is everything. Without the customer, there's absolutely nothing. You need to get good. I always teach about building capability in organizations. You need to get good at building interest in your firm or your brand or your division or whatever you're doing. It's very easy to stop, especially in times of recession. The CFO might want to cut things. It's very difficult to start again. Keep that, we call it the sausage machine. Keep cranking that handle. Don't ever stop creating interest in your own business. I'm going to talk today, and I always talk about value. I have a huge chip on my shoulder about paying lawyers so much money, especially at the minute, and yet not paying translators the similar amount of money. It's bizarre. Lawyers, $500 an hour at least. Translators, 4, 5, 6p a word if you're lucky. It's bizarre, the difference. Translators are much more intelligent, more qualified, nicer people, dare I say. If there's any lawyers in the room, see me after. Lawyers are not. Okay? Wise, we've got that split. Same with accountants, same with all sorts of things. So we've got that thing there. The value that this industry offers the world is astronomical, and yet the value of our industry is tiny. My friends at Slater, Nimsy, etc. all do a bit of research every year. The industry's worth, what, $30 billion a year? Oil and gas is worth $13 trillion a year. IT is worth $11 trillion a year. There are companies, most of the, lots of the S&P 500 are worth more than $30 billion. It's bizarre, this mismatch of value. So we need to sort that out. Profits are created by the customer. Last point I want you to think, profits are not created by your products. Profits are created by the customer. In a supply chain or a value chain, profits are created by the consumer when the thing's consumed. So that's where innovation should happen. I wish I could take you all in my DeLorean to the UK. I'll take you around some of my old customers, and we could see massive companies that are centered around the product. They literally have buildings named after the product, not named after the customer. It's bizarre, I think, because accountants run the world, but it's customers that drive your profits. So my assumptions, I've been in document translation, or there or thereabouts, until last year, for the last 25 or so years. I will be talking about that. That's my term of reference. I know some of you are software, some of you are interpreting, etc. I'll be talking about document translation predominantly. This is big stuff, but you're big people. Everything in here is cited, so you can take it away, do your own research. If there's anything that you disagree with, that's awesome. Please, let's have a conversation about it, and let's talk about it, and then move that forward. We can debate that. That's great. Out of debate will come an idea. And I'll show you the models and theories, and you can go on your own journey. So, seeing these trends, not just in the localization industry. I've been lucky recently. I've been consulting in all sorts of different places. Number one trend that everybody talks about in B2B sales is globalization. The fact that we compete globally with different people. The pandemic sped this up, although we as an industry were doing it for years anyway. We're all working from home, and we're all remote employees to some extent anyway. But this sped that up for the rest of the world. More importantly for us, your customers compete globally with their competitors. It's a global marketplace. Now, how can we apply that to our own supply chains? Think about our ecosystems in our industry. Think about us managing global projects. Think about us managing global people. Think about us managing remote people. That is of enormous value to your customers, my customers, the world. Okay? That's something we can ponder. There's less customers. I started my management career in 1990, thereabouts, and between 1991 and the year 2007, it sort of increased sort of 2-3% a year in the UK. Absolutely no problem. 2008, we had the great financial crash. Everything crashed for a bit, and then eventually it came back. We call it the credit crunch in the UK. So we had a recession in 2008. So up until then, I'd never managed a recession, didn't know. So there was a whole generation of managers like me that had learnt and studied. And when we studied about recession, it was in the history books. It wasn't out of experience. So we didn't bring that experience with us. What happened during that time was procurement globally got more power. In any recession, you'll see procurement having a larger conversation at the table. So great, okay, but procurement has more weight in the decision. There's now directors of procurement. There's now PhDs in procurement. The amount of MBAs who've flown to procurement versus sales is about 6 to 1. It's incredible. It's a very attractive place for people to work. So what they did, they got less suppliers, in each business. So they had this consolidation of suppliers last 10 years or so. You'll feel it in your own businesses. You'll have less customers, but they'll be larger. This leads you into a rhetoric of a world called key account management, and managing 4 or 5 strategic accounts in your own business and maximising that, which may mean that the sales team needs to have a slightly different skill set. Digitisation, obviously. Efficiency. Somebody said to me last year, Rich, it's like the fun's been taken out of sales. Now, from a sales point of view, what we used to do, we used to just turn up, take them to the cricket, take them to the golf, go and have a beer, and then close the sale. Now it's all on Zoom. There's very little social interaction there, sadly. It's difficult, it's harder to do. So the fun's been taken out of it. Value, we've mentioned that. Ethics is more and more important. Obviously, we're all ethical people, but it's becoming into the law now. There's a law in the UK called Section 172, which says as a board, we need to care about the stakeholders in our business. Now, you sit and ponder that. Stakeholders is a very, very broad definition. It can be somebody walking past the business. It can be the customer's customer. It can be your employees' family. These are all stakeholders in your business. So that's getting nice and broad. And obviously, AI as well. Pete said yesterday, AI has now got an interface to it. We can talk to it, and it will give us an answer. We can now use Photoshop. You get the new Photoshop beta, and you can ask it what you want it to do, and it will do it. It's unbelievable. Okay, so that's going to open up all sorts of creative possibilities for us. It's your job to build a team that can navigate through this. I think these are the new skills that we need to look at next 10 years or so. We're going 10 years into the future. Some economic trends here. It's all a bit grim. Well, IMF data, so I apologise for that, but it's IMF data. 4% or more is the dark green, so this is growth per year forecast for this year. You can see the orange ones are in recession. Obviously, UK, thanks to Brexit. Germany, thanks to God knows what. And Ukraine, thanks to the Russians. Okay, lovely, right? So there's not much of the world that's growing. We've got this thing. The world that's growing is China and India. Again, wonderful opportunity for us. Look at Google Trends. So I apologise I didn't put the URL on there, but if you Google Trends, you'll see that. You can see how many people search for a particular search term in per country per year. This is worldwide data. This is translation. So it's doubled last 10 years. This is translate. It's tripled last 10 years. Transcreation, those fancy words for translation, which is doubled last 10 years. memoQ was already perfect, so that's just about stayed the same. It's gone up slightly last 10 years. Not much data for that because it's a brand, very specific. We looked at it worldwide, so it's not fair to do it. If I'd looked at it in Budapest, it would probably have shot up, I bet. So, does everything always get commoditized? This is a problem we have as entrepreneurs. We get this commoditization pressure. We think about service differentiation along the bottom. So, how different's our service? But lots of differentiation here, not much here. And then if we think about price, more importantly, I think value differentiation as well. So can the customer differentiate the price there? Here, we have a commodity-based market where things are predominantly bought on price. Up the top, we have a branded market. This is why people invest in brands, to keep them here, to create some sort of monopoly. If you own Apple, you own the brand, so you can only make your product. That's it. That's what they're doing. Everything you do, even if especially if you're a freelance translator doing a couple of thousand words a month, is branding. Absolutely everything. Branding isn't about, my mentors told me the last 25 years, branding isn't about blowing the balloons up in the board meeting. Branding's not about the colours. Branding's not about the logo. Branding is absolutely everything that you do. Seth Godwin, everything is branding. Take you 25, 30 years to build it. 15 minutes to destroy it. It's about your reputation and your brand, so it's incredibly important. I always use this conference as a case study to demonstrate the power of branding as well. Just think of the value these guys have invested in this and this brand over the last 10, 15 years they've been doing it. It's awesome. It's astronomical. So we asked this 10 years, I won't ask it again. We asked this 10 years ago, are translation services commoditized? Most of the audience said yes. I'd say, well, it depends how you position it. In my own career, I've done deals which are thousands of dollars per word or deals which have been cents per word. Essentially the same production run in terms of an operations management thing, but it's just slightly different positioned. You've got to be careful how you do that. This is research from Harvard Business Review. I've stuck this in there. It's not my research, but it's from Harvard. So if you do get commoditized, you can kind of work through this. So top one, you can put your prices up. If you put your price up by 20%, how many customers will you lose? You'll have that sort of thing. You can debate that. You can think about that. You probably won't lose all the customers. The ones you will lose will be price sensitive. The ones you'll keep, you'll do at a higher margin. Pay your sales team on profit margin. I'm always banging this drum. Don't pay them on revenue. Pay them on profit margin. There should be a golden thread that runs through your business. However you pay your sales team, that's how they'll perform. However you pay your senior team, that's how they'll perform. If you want to increase margins, you pay them on that. Cut the costs, you should have done that anyway. Add a bit of smoke into the water as well for pricing. Now, I can remember once 10 years ago, 15 years ago, I had a particularly bad day at work and I'd lost a deal. UK government, lost it on price, your usual sort of story. I was at university at a dinner that night. I sat next to a chap called John, who's a global account manager for Rolls-Royce. And I was pushing my food around my plate, and he says, "What's up, Rich?" And I said, "John, I've had a bad day. I lost a deal on price. I'm worried everything's going to be commoditized, and I can't afford my mortgage or whatever else to knock on." To that is, John said, "It happens to us. It happens to Rolls-Royce." He says, "Don't tell anybody, but jet engines are a commodity. They're $80 million each, but a jet engine from Rolls-Royce is very, very, very similar to a jet engine from GE. It's essentially the same technology. We just bolt them on the bottom of aircraft and off we go." And he says, we were doing things like buy one, get one free. We were doing things like buy one, get a week in Hawaii for your family for free, etc., okay? And he says, it's crazy. Our cash flows were like this. They're all over the place. We couldn't predict it. We couldn't predict the production runs and so on. What we did, this is Rolls-Royce, we flipped it round. We servitized it and we changed it to power by the hour. So instead you get the engine for free, but then you pay an hourly contract per hour flown. And he says the engine's got technology built in. When it lands at Heathrow, the engineers rush out and do a quick pit stop, tighten the nuts up or do whatever they do, right? So it's that. So what can we learn from that? We price something on a commodity rhetoric, so per word, per hour, per page, whatever it is. Don't then moan if your product gets bought as a commodity, because they'll start comparing you price per price per price, and if there's no other differentiator than price, lowest price wins. And there's tons of PhDs in procurement as well. They'll all be looking at that. This is a slightly better way to add value. This is a model I've developed. We looked at sort of core service here. So in my context, that would be language translation. We've got two ways to add value on these two different dimensions. We've got one, we can add value through bundling. Bundling's an economic model that suggests if we put things together with other products, we can sell more products. So if we put language translation with DTP, with content creation, with printing, or whatever else, right? You get what I'm saying. We can then sell more in the market. So we can add value through that, or we can add value through segmentation and targeted extension. So if we're selling, like Doug was saying, if we're selling a regulatory product to pharmaceuticals industry, we can look at, well, who else needs a regulatory controlled translation? Food industry, oil and gas probably, et cetera, et cetera. So we can move sideways in different industries like that. Invariably, this move's difficult to do if you do both, but you can develop a specific solution for a specific target market. So, hopefully this works. What's important is that you look at the customer and you understand what it is they're using your service to do. It's a 10-second clip. It works. So this lady's in the supermarket and she's going to fry an omelette or something like that. She's looking at the frying pans there. That's great. A friend here. So she's... Oh dear. So number 3, there we go. Needed 3 shots, right? One person's buying your product to fry an omelette. We'll go around her house for dinner. One person's trying to kill the cat or whatever she's doing. Same product, same production run, same materials, etc. Very different outcome, a different value in use, we'd say, from academia. So we need to think about how's your translations being used. The only way you can do that is by watching the consumer, watching the customer. You could ask them. Henry Ford said, if I'd asked the customer what they wanted, they'd have said faster horses. So the customer doesn't always know. I didn't know I needed a super-duper laptop. I didn't know I needed bottled water. I didn't know I needed a flat-screen TV, an electric car, etc., etc. These innovations have come out of watching how my demographic behave and then innovating around that. We need to segment your market as well, but segmentation's tricky to do. You can segment it wrong. It's an example how not to do it. You can segment on demographics. So this is somebody born in 1948, married twice, 2 kids, very successful, very wealthy, likes skiing and loves dogs. Well, one's... I wrote this joke 9 months ago. One's the artist formerly known as the Prince of Wales, and one's the artist formerly known as the Prince of Darkness. If you don't know who Ozzy Osbourne is, please see me after. With your Spotify playlist, we'll add in a few songs on that. Similar people on paper, very, very different people, I hope, in real life. So relying solely on demographics leads to stereotyping. So look at it in terms of buying behavior. So it's a similar sort of lady in the supermarket. One's trying to murder somebody and one's trying to cook you some fried eggs. Right? Okay, so it's a similar thing, but very, very different. This is product life cycle, which I've snuck in here. This is like really, I could do 2 hours on this alone. I know we're not selling products. Some of us are, but I know we're not selling products, we're selling a service, but those two things are kind of similar anyway. This has come out of FMCG, so fast-moving consumer goods. It's where this study come from. It says that's total sales. It says whatever we make, these people will buy any old rubbish. So these are the people that queue up outside the Apple store for 24 hours in order just to be the first person to open it and put it on YouTube. We get the fanboys. We then have this chasm. The marketeers call this jumping the chasm. And then we get to the main market. Obviously, the money's being made in the main market. That's the market that we want to get to. So there's this problem to think of. There's innovation and things like that. What happens is product innovation comes on top of the product life cycle. As the product starts to die in terms of sales, the product then gets innovated. Now, I can remember before I had my midlife crisis, I used to shave every morning, and I used to buy Gillette products because David Beckham used them, and it was like 1 blade, great, 2 blades, 3 blades, 4 blades, 5 blades with a battery in it. It was crazy, okay? I'm not sure what the product does now, I don't buy it anymore, but it was that innovation all the time. They weren't really innovating much, they were just adding blades. But it's that as sales start to dip, they try and do it. You can kind of see it in our industry. There's been different fashions come through the industry. So obviously we had translation, and we had localization, charge 25% more if you call it localization. And we had transcreation. So it's not just normal translation, it's transcreation. You got another 25% on that. Then we've got cultural understanding. That's the one you're seeing at the moment. It's not just translation. No, we'll analyse the market then. Yeah, okay. Same production run. It's implied complexability. It's just a different name for the same thing, basically. It's this innovation that happens. So keep your eyes open for that. There's a study there from Apple. You can see as Apple phones come out, so their innovation will be driven by the dip in the product life cycle. So as the conservatives start buying, they'll innovate and release a new product on there. So think about how that applies to you and your product. Eventually things get commoditized anyway. It's like gravity. It'll drag it down to that commoditization box. So you need to innovate somewhat and move with the times. 5 years ago, everything had crypto in the title, didn't it? I think now everything's got AI in the title, but we can see. You know, you can come to your own conclusions. I've been CEO and I've been sales director in my career. Being CEO in a small business means that you're sales director anyway. I've always had a clash with procurement people. I've clashed with sort of accountants and procurement people over my time. And instead of having this argument, after about 7 or 8 years of just having an argument with procurement, I thought, well, I'll start to learn how they think because they seem like a different breed. So I went on about 6 or 7 different procurement courses, and I found that the one common theme that was taught to them was this 2x2. And what they do, believe it or not, we're talking about segmentation of the customers. They'll segment the suppliers and then treat you differently depending on which segment you're in. It's called the Kraljic Matrix. Everything's based on top of this. They might change it slightly, but it's roughly based on this. So we've got supply risk along the bottom, and then we've got profit impact to the customer along that axis, and then they'll put us in a box. Here will be commoditized. It's not important to them in terms of supply. It's not important to them in terms of profit. Top right-hand corner will be strategic. That's where we want to be. What will happen is your sales team, if they're worth the salt, if not, phone me. They should be trying to get you in this box in terms of strategic. So your conversation should be around managing supply chain and the profit impact or the value impact to the customer. Procurement will try and put you in this box here, down here. So there's this constant tug of war between the two. Okay? So you'll do that. The biggest deals you'll make is when it's strategic. You can kind of tell by the level of the seniority of the procurement person that you talk to. If there's somebody fresh out of university, they're probably down here just having a go. So somebody said to me at dinner tonight, it's like buying toilet rolls. It's very commoditized, you know. It's just, I'm just going to buy 1,000 words. It's as if it was that simple. It's not. It's so complicated. So we need to communicate that to the world. It's up to us to tell the world that. So have a think about, can we drive that on service innovation alone? So can we call it a different thing? Transcreation AI or whatever we're calling it this week. Okay, can we just innovate the word in terms of service delivery? Think about as well where MT sits on that. I'd suggest MT's down here. It's a kind of a cheapy sort of, I'm going to buy tons of it at once. It's subscription based. I just want to pay a low cost to do it. Which makes me wonder why lots of people are innovating to sit around this sort of box. Okay, again, we could debate that. And don't ever tire of telling the customer about how much value you make them. If you're going to a customer, read their innovations, read their investor relations report before, even if you just skim it. In there, they'll be telling their shareholders about how much money they're going to make in different regions. Almost every company in the world's global. Any company that's listed on any stock market in the world by law has to produce that information and present it to the shareholders. You can go and tell the procurement people how much value language is making in their enterprise. If somebody's doing $100 million in Europe, you go and tell them that you're part of that supply chain. Just trying to move you into this top corner. We talk about developing value proposition. So value proposition sits at the heart of the business model canvas, if you've used that model. I like to break it down to sort of make it as simple as possible. So the value proposition is the essence of the thing that we're providing to that segment. So yes, it's about translation, but it's slightly more than that. I want you to think about what's the impact, what's the capability, and what's the cost or value really to the customer. And you can break it down to those three when you're developing your value propositions. I've got a much more complicated model should you want to get into it, but this is a fairly good first step. There's one we're developing at university. It's brand new. I'm looking for guinea pigs for it, really. So if you wanted a more advanced model, send me an email and I'll send you the more advanced model. Now, it's another thing that really annoys me because I've made this mistake. I spent an absolute fortune once to get a consultant to take my senior managers away to develop some sort of strategy for the business, and I used a SWOT analysis to do it. Trouble is, what happens is you'll sit with your senior team and people will come up with ideas on post-it notes, and stick it on the chart. It takes 2.5 days to do. But it's a stupid waste of time. Well, I've seen so what before, it doesn't really work, but it's a stupid waste of time because everything goes in every box. You could put Brexit in every box if you wanted to debate it. Some of it's politically motivated. It's stupid. It's a waste of time. Here's a better way of doing it. Do your SWOT analysis, so at least have a brainstorm with the team, but set a boundary around it. And then I want you to put the strengths and weaknesses almost on the outside of the model and the opportunities and threats here. You think about that. These are internal things to your business. So you can be looking at things like the resource-based view of the firm or the business model canvas to analyse that. These are external things to your business. So you can be looking at pestle analysis or Porter's 5 forces and things like that to analyse. And then in the centre, where these interact, you're going to then develop strategies. So if there's something, an opportunity in the market, and you're bloody good at it, that's what you want to be doing, right? Play to your strengths, okay? You do that, you'll have a much more structured approach and everybody understand what they're doing. It's a much better way of doing it. I was doing a workshop in your firm as well. We've run through this. I've included this. You can fill this in yourself, which adds bells and whistles onto that. You'll get the slides as well, don't worry. That takes you through a 6 or 7 step process to help you understand that. Oops. Right. You talk about marketing. So invariably we're talking about managing the customer, which is the study of marketing. So marketing and branding isn't just blowing the balloons up in the board meeting. Management is a study of the customer. If your marketing team is spending their time predominantly on social media, doing social media type stuff and telling you there's lots of eyeballs going on your social media, great, but they should be studying the customer, segmenting the customer, developing a value proposition, and then communicating that value proposition to each segment, okay? What you can do, what I always like to do, I sit there with my virtual toolbox. Somebody comes in my office and I can get my virtual toolbox out and I can apply these models that I've learned over the years to each one. Somebody's talking about marketing to me, marketing campaign, marketing strategy, marketing plan, whatever it is, I'll run through the 7 Ps. Sometimes it's called the 4 Ps, sometimes it's the 6 Ps, sometimes it's the 8 Ps. It's like, you know, that film Dumb and Dumber, 6-minute abs, 4-minute abs. It doesn't really matter. It's the fact that you're going to run through a framework and do that. So product, price, place, promotion, people, process, physical evidence, which is really brand. So you're going to run through each one of those and then ask yourself a question, do we tick that box? If you're marketing, you're developing a marketing campaign, make sure you use the marketing mix, okay? I want to see the 7 Ps used and done that. In terms of selling, seeing a shift in sales. Sales has got much more, dare we say, academic, but sales has got much more broader in scope. Sales used to be relatively straightforward, i.e. we would just turn up and show the clicker or show the product, and that would basically be it. We would be the Google of the world before people would ask the salespeople the questions, and we would tell them that obviously the very biased answer to their question. Now everyone's got Google, everyone's got a laptop, they can do their own research before. The majority of the sales process happens without anybody knowing. The majority of sales processes, the sales cycle, happens within organisations secretly. We come in at like 60, 70, 80% of the way through. So it's very hard to influence at the end. Position as 2 things. If you're employing sales or training sales, we want to be the doctor. So it's pure cheese, this is, but it kind of works. You've got to diagnose before you prescribe. And then it's more of an architecture type role. So you're going to help to build something with the customer. So it's going to be that co-creation piece along that. And obviously if you've built a translation process, along with that, you've got buying and ownership and so on. So co-creation with customer is incredibly important. Right, wouldn't be a lecture from me without Popeye. I know most of you have seen this already, but let's imagine this is your customer. So I have this all my sales training. Let's imagine you're selling spinach, and at the end of it, we've got the value in use. We've got the thing that the customer can achieve with your service. So, what do we sell in that equation? Obviously, we don't sell the spinach. And it works with translation as well, okay? So we're selling the Popeye does some spinach, has an amazing weekend, goes weightlifting, gets a date with olive oil, defeats Brutus in the boxing match, or whatever he's doing, bends a steel beam, whatever he does, right? Okay. Works with Mario eating mushrooms as well for those under 35. I think it works with Pokemon as well for those under 25. Don't sell the spinach. So if you think about that in your own context, Facebook plus translation equals world domination. So we're selling the world domination to Zuckerberg, which he quite likes. We're not selling the 2,000 words a day, 8,000 mother tongue translators, blah, 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 blah. They're internal things. That's important in terms of operations. It's incredibly important. What the client's actually buying is the outcome of that. They're buying the value. They're buying the value in use. The value of this clicker wasn't delivered when I bought it off Amazon. The value of this clicker has been created by me as I've used it. The value of your translation is used in the value chain or content supply chain as it's consumed and as it's used in that. And that's where we should innovate, okay? So a really silly example, I know, but I was telling people don't sell the spinach. We have a model here called the service profit chain, which is basically telling us that things are linked, obviously. Happy employees leads to customer retention. We all kind of know that. We're all decent people. That's obvious to work out. In here, talks about the customer experience. And I want you to imagine that products now, to some extent, are homogeneous. Service around that can be copied as well. So if you buy a motor car, the service around the motor car can be copied as well. But it's how it makes you feel. It's the intangibles. It's the brand. It's the things like that which can't be copied. And that's where the value is in your business. You think about how your customers feel when they interact with you or your brand. That's the value. So somebody knocks on your door and offers you 3 times EBITDA. 1 should be adjusted EBITDA, but number 2, they're buying your brand and they're buying 25, 30 years of your reputation, not just your cash flows that they're going to guess and devalue. Right, value in use, we spoke about that. The value of the clicker is created as I use it. And then we have the customer profitability box. So customer profits come from customers. Customers come from advocacy. That's people talking about you. Customer retention, obviously keeping your customers, which is much more important now than it ever was because the cost of customer acquisition has shot up because there's less customers. Share of wallet and obviously customer acquisition. Right, so the question is, how do we do that? It is very difficult to start the process of customer acquisition if it's been stopped. I'm probably going to say it could even take about a year to start this process going through again. I said at the start, and I want a key point I want you to take away. I want you to continuously build interest in your business and build the capability within your business to continuously build interest within it. Whatever you're doing, you can't stop cranking that sausage handle, right? It's really important. Yes, you can buy leads. Yes, the sales guy might knock on your door and promise you the moon on a stick. But it takes months, if not quarters, if not years, to start again to build that brand. Different processes to do it. I've stole this from HubSpot. They've got a 4-step process. This is from me. I've got obviously 3-step process is better than a 4-step process. 3-minute abs. Awareness, interest, action. So your marketing should be organised in that and then move through that. And you can look at how many people you have in that pipeline. Just as you have a pipeline for sales, you have a pipeline for marketing as well. And your marketing will feed that. What we've seen over the last number of years, should we say, is that marketing has done more of the sales process as well. So what you'd want to do is to generate your marketing so it's giving you almost qualified leads for your salespeople just to do a slam dunk with. That's the perfect position to be in. In terms of advocacy, we could get your customers and empty them out onto the table, the imaginary table, the imaginary customers here. They would all sit somewhere on this ladder. And if you think they sit suspect, so you suspect they have a need, prospect, you've qualified it, customer, client, they've done 3 jobs with you, supporter, they'll support your service, advocate, partner, and so on. They all sit somewhere on there. Invariably, it'd be a pyramid shape. There won't be many at the top. I think, again, I use Kilgrave as a case study here. They have an enormous amount of supporters and advocate. I think I was the best salesman 1 quarter for memoQ. I was totally by accident, by just supporting the brand because it's a great brand and great people. You can do that. Just think of the value of having customers sell your product for you. One, they pay you. You've not got to pay sales commission. You've not got to pay the salaries. Two, if I tell somebody memoQ is the best thing since sliced bread, they believe me. If your director tells them, they're going to be, yeah, okay. He's paid to do it, right? I'm not paid to do it. I genuinely believe it. So it's got much more social weight in it. Set your company up to do this, okay? You want supporters of your brand, people to believe in there. What's going to drive that is things like value, authenticity, all that sort of thing, all the good stuff, okay? Little sheet there you can fill in so you can do that exercise with your team on Monday morning, run through that, give it a score, do some stuff, do it again, see if the score's improved. Hopefully it's gone up. Customer retention, okay? There's less customers in the world because it's all consolidated down, okay? People are buying bigger things. So work out your customer retention ratio. Very important, you know, how many customers you lose per year. I'm a very simple man, so I like to think of it like it's a bucket or a cup with holes in it. These are £5 notes. You come to the UK, you won't even buy you a pint of beer now, a fiver. Used to go out when I was a lad, you used to go out on a fiver, you wouldn't even get a pint now. So you pour your customers in the top, there's a hole in the bucket and the customers leak out the bottom. So for instance, if your customer leak rate is 20% a year, you've got to grow at 20% a year just to stay the same. Add into that the industry growth rate, add into that the growth of the world economy or inflation, okay? So your head of sales or head of marketing might come to you and say, good news, we grew at 20%. What's the retention rate? These are your questions. What's the retention rate? What's the industry growth rate? And what's inflation? Because you can take those off that number. So that growth has got to be quite a lot. That's why we've got to keep this constant churn of people being interested in the business. Use something like Net Promoter Score. I know people hate it, love it or hate it in terms of Net Promoter Score. What I want you to think of is I want you to talk to the customer and get some sort of systematic test on how happy the customer is, how likely the customer is to recommend your services. That's what's going to tell you. Obviously, bad news early is good news in terms of customers. Like employees, once they're gone, they're gone. That's it. It's too late, okay? You're trying to retain them for as long as possible. So share of wallets, okay? It's an important concept. You'll go to a customer and you'll think, how much of the share of wallet, how much of the spend am I getting? Share of wallet's made up of what they spend with you, what they spend with your competition, what they should do but don't, and what they do themselves, okay? So there's a slightly different sales and marketing strategy to capture each one of those. What they do themselves is, I think, the biggest competitor to our industry. I've done loads of certainly government contracts, sold loads of contracts, gone into the customer to start to milk the cow, and it's, oh, John speaks Polish, he's doing it, or Fred speaks French, he's doing it. So it's that customer of that. One way to get around that is to put in the systems and operations to help them improve, to get them addicted to your system. So if you can't actually do the translation, at least you can manage the process. Ansoff Matrix there from marketing. You list out your products or your services on the bottom, existing ones and new ones. And then markets here or segments you could do, existing and new. What you'll find is at the end of the quarter, when your salespeople are missing targets, they'll come into your office with some bright ideas, probably involving the word AI, and they'll try and sell a new service to a new product. What I want you to do is to focus on what you're doing. Keep grinding that sausage machine. Keep selling the same stuff to the same people. I'm always telling this to all the MBAs come in the class all wide-eyed and wanting to change the world. The majority of business is about doing the same old stuff time and time again and doing it more and more and more efficiently. Changing skill set for sales. Yeah, we get that. There's a book there if you want to read it or come and talk to me. The thing is, sales has changed. You still need to sell, but there'll be more T-shaped people than they were. So instead of just focusing on sales, they'll be focusing on other bits as well. So, 30 seconds. So, key points I want you to take away from this. If you sell your service like a commodity, it will get bought like one. So please don't cry because you did it on a per word rhetoric on an RFQ and then say, well, the market's a bit tough, okay? The market's enormous. We're only a $30 billion industry. The world economy is absolutely massive. During COVID, central banks printed $20 trillion. It was just invented out of the middle of nowhere. Just think how that number compares with our industry size. lots of companies could buy our whole industry and just spit us out, okay? So the opportunity is enormous, okay? Perhaps think about how you can innovate that pricing. Price, I want you to financially quantify the value proposition. So never get sick of telling the customer how much value you've generated them. If they're moving to a different market, if they're communicating with a diverse home market, if they're avoiding legal blah, 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 you tell them. You work it out and you tell them. If your sales team can't, they need some training to think about it. Profits come from customers, and don't ever stop this marketing process. The most important thing we have, if you boil it down, will be your brand and your reputation. Keep hold of that. There's a reading list there. Should you want it, you'll get the slides. And a job for Monday morning, I want you to think of one thing you can do in your business that can help to move it forward. These little things add up. You've got two different trajectories. We go down the commodity road, race to zero, or we can start to understand the customer and supply chain and start to add value. I believe the second one's a better one for your shareholders, okay? I would like to say, well, first of all, there's a voucher there. If you want some free consultancy, give me a shout. We'll talk about that. There's the Slater training on there. A note from me, in fact, I was devastated to miss last year. Me and my family are absolutely delighted you invited me back this year, so thank you. Thank you, Kilgrave, for having me back. I guess I'll see you in 10 years with 3,650 days as a consultant. I know that's a lot of content. I've overrun by a minute. I apologise. Tons of stuff in there, but I wanted to give you tons of stuff, okay? Loads of stuff. You can run your business off there. So if there's any easy questions, it's now or it's coffee time, I guess.
We can get away with a question if Shawnee's not in the room. Anybody? Shawnee is in the room. Just one interesting thing on this. Microsoft, one company in 2021 made $21.4 million essentially on their translation, which they pay about, I don't know what they pay, but it's tiny. Because the profits they make in Ireland is all on their translation work around the world. And the profits for 2021 were something $21 million. Almost the same size as the translation industry. Yeah. And this is one company, and it's one company's profit based on localization.
Amazing, yeah, amazing. But we should be doing that.
I think that's an excellent point. Let's talk about this over coffee, and thank you all very much. And also thank you for turning up so